Hey, what is up, guys? It is Harrison Brown, the Millennial Entrepreneur. Now, in this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about titles and meta descriptions on your content. Doesn't matter if it's blogs, doesn't matter if it's just pages on your website, but ultimately how to make them so irresistible to customers and also how to write them way easier. That way people click on it. The more people click on it, the more people can read your content, the more people will stay on your page, ultimately telling Google, hey, this is really good content. We should show this out to more people. Now, I'm going to show you guys the exact process that we use at my agency, growth-generators.com, and this is what we do for all of our clients. We've had clients that are reaching 1 million clicks per year, and we've taken them from literally nothing. So it's really, really cool. It's something we do typically every 2 to 3 months. You got to give it some time to sit there and marinate and let Google do its thing, because we all know that Google isn't exactly quick when it comes to ranking you higher and higher. So I'm going to show you guys the exact process that we use at my agency, how you guys can do this yourself, and ultimately the results that you're going to get are going to be pretty shocking. Now, you're not going to see results tomorrow, although you may, but chances are pretty good you're going to see a result in about a month or two, and your clicks are going to go way up. And the more clicks that you can get, the more people are going to visit your website. And like I said, Google's going to just have more confidence in the fact that you know what you're doing. It's actually going to have a spiderweb effect. It's actually going to start to impede on your other articles, and they're all going to get boosted up as well. So let's jump into this here. And the first place you need to start out with before you go anywhere is your Google Search Console. Now, I say this because I currently rank for a handful of things in the top 5 spots. I say top 5 because they're usually floating around up there. And what we really care about is the top 20. Anything less than top 20 is actually really not going to help us. And I am in the way here, so I'm going to shrink myself down a little bit. But you'll actually start to see, hey, here's what I'm ranking for, the query, and then ultimately the position. Now, the reason why you need to be in the top 20 is because if you're not in the top 20, Google doesn't really know whether or not you belong up there, and your content might not be good enough depending on how long it's been around. But if you're in the top 20, chances are pretty good. You just need a little bit of tweaking with your title and your meta description, and you could probably rank in the top 10, if not the top 1, for a certain period of time. Now, I've done this before. It's actually really cool. It has an effect. It usually takes a couple weeks to get there, but when you rank in position 0 or position 1, it is the best feeling in the world. So you'll see we have a bunch of impressions on some things, we have some clicks on some things, and this is over the last 3 months, and it's a growing website. It's still kind of new, right? But if you look at it over a course of a period of time, let's just look at it at 6 months here, you'll see that it's actually growing and actively growing, which is huge. I mean, there's my impressions, and then if you look, you'll see clicks typically seem to follow. Had a little bit of a drop off, but come on, I mean, who's working on a Saturday and who wants to watch and read business owner type articles on a Saturday here? Which is fine. We did this a couple weeks ago, somewhere around the early parts of April here, and it's had a pretty good effect. It's been going up along with the impressions, and we're trying to get that overall click-through rate a little bit higher than it currently is, which is fine. So you're going to click the average position, and this is going to bring up a new column down here, and we're just going to pull open, actually let's change this to 3 months here. And you really want to look for the top, depending on how many pages you have. This particular website has 242 blogs, so there's a lot of content up there that's still in the process of ranking. A lot of it hasn't even been around a full year yet. So Google's still playing around with it, and you'll start to see, okay, we have a bunch of things in the top 10. Okay, here's a great example. So podcast interview questions. We've gotten 4 clicks from it. We're in position 18, and we have about 328 impressions on this. Now, the reason why this is important is because that's that sweet spot of earlier than 20 or less than 20, which means we're on the second page of Google. And the way that we could prove this or test this is just simply grab this, go up to Google here, and drop that in, and you are going to be able to see who is. So we have Entrepreneur on Fire, Wave.co, Design Your Thinking, Podcasting, right? So currently I'm not up here. That's the whole first page. But where do I belong? I belong probably in the second page here. There it is. So we are in spot 14 currently. Not bad, not great. And sorry, that's the Facebook group I'm a part of. But you'll begin to see, okay, great. That's the spot that we need to start out with is podcast interview questions. That's what we're currently ranking for, but we could rank so much higher. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill down a little bit, and I actually want to see the specific page and where it's going. So it's still getting impressions, but here's the problem. I'm not really getting any clicks, and these clicks are actually pretty old. So how do I go about fixing this? Now, this page happens to just start ranking here, And I'm going to just click this page here. And what I really want to do is I want to pull out this information. So I'm actually clicking this so it only gives me this page. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to show me everything that this page is currently ranking for. And a lot of it is in the 20s. Huge red flag that says, hey, you need to go back and fix this. Now, this specific page has brought in about 43 clicks over the last 3 months. Nothing spectacular, but it's still a new article. And it's gotten 188,000 impressions with a 2.3% click-through rate. Now, if I'm willing to bet, we could probably get that a lot higher. One thing I do want to look at is I want to look at the 12-month and just see where it is in the journey of where, how it's getting seen on Google. And you'll see here it just started getting some love on Google and started adding some impressions, and it's getting 64 impressions now. But back in the early days of when I released it, it really wasn't getting that many. I'd probably be willing to venture I released it in July at some point here. And this is huge. This is really good information that we can make some educated decisions on. If we look at it, July 9th, perfect. I called it just before that, right? And it took a long time. I mean, July to really mid-January or early January to start getting even a little bit of impressions. And now it's starting to move in the right direction. So beyond excited to see that. And we have a bunch of queries that we're currently ranking for. So the first step in this whole process is actually seeing what we're currently ranking for on this article. Now, we've already pulled up the article, 10 podcast interview questions and techniques to leave your audience wanting more, which is honestly a pretty good title in here. And the other things that I want to do is I want to see what's getting impressions. So podcast interview questions, which I think is already what we pulled up here. Yep. And if we go back to page 1, this is really what I want to look at. I really want to see what's doing well, what's not doing well. And currently 1, 2, 3, 4, we have the top 5 with numbers. Most of the first page has numbers in it. So 6 strategies for improving your podcast interview questions, top 101 podcast interview questions. So these are really probably detailed articles that I'm now competing with. And the cool part is like I said, I'm showing up on the second page of Google right behind a lot of these heavy hitters. So now that I have this information, right, and I currently know what I want to go after. So this is what people are searching: podcast interview questions, questions for podcast guests, how to interview somebody for a podcast, all really good queries that Google's still kind of testing out. And this is the page that it's currently going on. So the first thing I want to do is I want to analyze the competition. This is really important. So analyzing this competition, tremendous. Now I get to see, okay, 10 of the best interview questions to ask, 19 podcast interview questions, 6 of the most impactful questions. Okay, so it has a lot about impact and a lot about really getting deep in these questions. So the next thing I want to start to look at is I actually want to go and find that specific article here. So I'm just going to grab this, going to copy this. Now this is the back end of Kajabi. Feel free to go check it out yourself. I do give out 14 days of free trial down below. And I'm going to just hit edit on this. So 7/9/20 is when it launched. This is what it looks like, and 10 podcast interview questions and tips for happy listeners and guests. Now that I'm starting to look at this, when I made this, that was not a bad title, but this could be so much better. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. I like using AI. I want to use AI to make my life easier. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look in here for some meta descriptions. SEO Metatag, perfect. And now this is a software called Copysmith.ai, offers a variety of different things, everything from blog ideas to a full blog post. It's still in progress here, but you got carousel ads, Facebook ads. The Facebook ads, as this thing turns out, are next level. I have a whole video on AI, and honestly what AI can do. It's pretty mind-blowing. And I'm just going to hit create. I'm going to let it do the work for me. I don't want to actually have to do the work myself because that would require me to actually do something. And why would I ever want to do that? So you're going to copy that into here. This is where it's going to start to pull some information here. I'm just going to put harrisonbarron.com. I don't particularly like the fact that it requires me to add a company name, but that's okay. Company description. So I'm actually not going to use a company description for this. I'm going to copy and paste this entire first paragraph. And this is something that I started doing with this software, and the results have been insane. So target keyword is interview question. Interview questions, and then we're going to do podcast because those are really what we're going after, and any other target keywords are just going to pop up in here. Great podcast interview questions. I mean, I have the two main ones, podcast and interview. and then I'm just going to add questions. Oh, no, I have interview questions. And I'm going to just let it do its thing. That's it. I'm not going to touch it anymore. And I want this to do the hard work for me. Because, quite honestly, coming up with creative and doing 242 blogs is a lot of work that, honestly, I don't think anybody wants to do, right? So 10 interview questions that get you valuable guest comments, right? So let's just look at the article. What is the biggest mistakes or myths in your niche? What pissed you off this week, right? I read, watched, listened to your book. And you said, quote, what about this is important to you? Right? These are all really, really good questions that I really do ask a lot of people when they're on my podcast. So maybe it's not specifically geared for every single podcast, but these are really good questions that I typically go to when I'm interviewing somebody. By the way, I do have a podcast in the top 5% in the world, and subtle flex, but it is cool to have, even though it's not something I particularly care all that much about. It's not the kind of person I am. But we have 10 podcast interview questions that get valuable guest comments. And really what I'm just looking for is I'm looking for AI to do the hard work for me. So podcast interview questions, 10 questions to spark meaningful conversations. So that's really good, actually. I do like the 10 questions to spark meaningful conversations. That's definitely something I might consider using. Podcast interview, 10 tips to transform a show. Podcast interview questions, 10 questions to spark meaningful conversation. I'm just going to go with that. I really kind of like that. It's kind of sitting with me in a really good way. So now I'm going to go up here. I'm going to go find the article, and I'm actually going to swap this out. So 10 questions spark meaningful conversations, right? But we're not quite there yet. So actually what I'm thinking about is now that this thing's kind of giving me some ideas of like to spark meaningful conversations or to keep, I actually want to change it to keep listeners engaged. Boom. That's not spelled right. Oh my God, right on the money there with 70 characters. I mean, I'm maxed out, but that's really good. 10 questions spark meaningful conversations. Let's just look at the competition again. 10 great podcast questions, 10 of the best podcast interview questions to ask. I mean, that's pretty good and boring. 19 podcast interview questions, 6 of the most impact podcast interview questions, right? So I actually kind of like this. This is something that kind of sits with me really, really well. Now, on the flip side of things, too, you have to put in a meta description. So that's why we've put together a list of great podcast questions, what questions. So I'm going to just go back here, and the right questions and techniques are crucial. These 10 questions spark meaningful conversations that will add value to your listeners, and I'm just going to honestly look for the one that I like. Now, not all of them that this software generates are always going to be perfect. Some of them have been better than anything I could have ever imagined, potentially something better than I could have ever paid somebody to write for me. But these are really great. 10 podcast interview questions, spark meaningful conversations. Here, let's keep going through this. You know what? Let's just generate more. I really do enjoy kind of pushing the software to the limit here. And what it's doing is it's going through, it's analyzing a bunch of information, and it's trying to give me the best possible data out there. And you can always go back. That's one of my favorite parts about this. And with podcasts, it's easy often to fall into a rut. These 10 questions to interview your guests and spark a meaningful conversation that will add value to your listeners. Okay, I'm not against that one. I'm going to swap that out. What do I currently have here? I just want to see what I currently have. And nothing's worse than a podcast with generic questions and bland, unprepared interviewer. If you have a podcast here, okay, so it's not bad. I'm going to say when podcast gets off, okay, it's kind of similar flow, right? We're at 175 characters. Use these 10 questions to interview your guests and spark a meaningful conversation that will add value to your listeners. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, I literally didn't do anything. Now, it's not uncommon for me to go in here and tweak and modify what the AI gives me, but that's it. That is the whole process. So in 14 minutes, not only was I able to teach you about this entire thing, but I was also able to make this for you guys. So I hope you guys found value in this. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you guys found value in this or you guys want to try out copywriter.ai, I will leave a link down below. My name is Harrison Barron, the Millennial Entrepreneur. I hope you guys found value. Leave a comment down below if it's something you want to try or if you're struggling with it. I'd always love to help. And if you guys do need help, growth-generators.com. Feel free to reach out to my agency. And that's it. Hope you guys like this. Hit that subscribe button, that like button.